All right, and welcome back to School Wellness Overview Part 2. And so what we're going to really talk about in this series of slides is why does this all matter? Like, why should we care about school wellness? And much of the information that's used in this section in this series of slides help to provide the persuasive argument of why we need to be focused on school wellness, school health. So why should we care? So schools are really an ideal setting for students to learn about health and healthy behaviors. More than 95% of young people in the US are in school. And they're in school for many years. So, think about that. If we thought pre-K through grades 12, we're looking between 12 and 13 years that students are in school. And this is a critical time for their development. Health is academic because helping young people stay healthy is a fundamental part of the mission of our schools. Healthy behaviors are associated with academic achievement, and school health programs can help improve students' academic achievement. So, healthy behaviors really clearly influence the quality of life for young people and their ability to contribute and to live productively in society. In the 2010 report, Healthier Students Are Better Learners, a missing link in school reforms to close the achievement gap, the report really talks about the educational relevancy of health disparities, such as participation in and access to physical activity, participation in access to eating breakfast, and the effects that educational opportunities and outcomes have on children. The report states that no matter how well teachers are prepared to teach, no matter what accountability measures are put in place, no matter what growing structures are established for schools, educational progress will be profoundly limited if students are not motivated and able to learn. Health-related problems play a major role in limiting the motivation and ability to learn. While schools cannot address all of the conditions that cause educational or health disparities, there are evidence-based and promising approaches that can be applied to address the health issues of students and ensure that they are able to learn and be successful. So it boils down to the fact that students' success in schools is really more than just simply academics. Evidence indicates that education and health for students must go hand in hand in order for students to succeed. In addition to making sure students are learning, there are school health policies and practices that affect academic achievement that need to be in place. For example, offering healthy food items and providing opportunities for students to be physically active. In the next few slides, we're going to review a couple different things. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the evidence that supports why we need to focus on healthy eating and physical activity. We'll talk about some of the core messages and then audience-specific messages. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some actions that can help you share this information with key stakeholders, and then ultimately how they can take action. Okay, so the first step in making a case for addressing healthy eating and physical activities in schools is to know the evidence that supports the link between these behaviors and academic achievement. So let's first talk a little bit about academic achievement and what it really means. So academic achievement really is, we could boil this down, or we could talk about this in terms of three main aspects: academic performance, education behavior, and then students' cognitive skills and attitudes. So when we're talking about academic performance, we're talking about things like class grades, like what grade are they getting? We might measure this on standardized tests. We could also measure, graduation rates. Could be a metric or an indicator of academic performance. When we're talking about educational behavior, we could talk about things like attendance. That could be a metric to help measure that, or dropout rates, or the different types of behavioral problems that we have at schools can be linked to education behavior. And then when we talk about students' cognitive skills and attitudes, we're really talking about their ability to concentrate, their ability to memorize or perform memory-related activities, and their overall mood. Evidence has shown that specific dietary practices and issues are related to different aspects of academic achievement. Specifically, student participation in the school breakfast program is associated with increased academic grades and standardized test scores. It's also linked to reduced absenteeism and improved cognitive function. So, for example, again, just what we saw on the other slide, memory is considered a cognitive function. We also know that skipping breakfast is associated with decreased cognitive performance. So things like alertness, attention, memory, and the ability to process complex visual displays, and also problem solving. Lack of adequate consumption of specific foods, such as fruits and vegetables or dairy products, is associated with lower grades among students. And when I'm talking about is associated, we actually have research to back this up. Deficits in specific nutrients, for example, vitamin A or B6, iron, zinc, calcium, and a number of others, are associated with lower grades and higher rates of absenteeism and tardiness among students. And hunger due to insufficient food intake is associated with lower grades, higher rates of absenteeism, repeating a grade, and an inability to focus among students. The CDC and many national organizations recommend establishing a healthy school nutrition environment to support both healthy eating and learning. A healthy school nutrition environment includes access to healthy and appealing foods and beverages, and making these available to students in school meals, vending machines, school stores, through competitive or a la carte lines in the cafeteria, through fundraising and classroom parties. In addition, consistent messages about food and healthy eating across the school environment and school curricula is important, and opportunities for students to learn about healthy eating through health education. And I would also add in there, using the cafeteria as a classroom, right? So that in the cafeteria, we're supporting all of these messages, all of this information that we know about healthy eating. Data from the 2009, so it's a little bit old, Youth Risk Behavior Survey indicated that 22% of high school students with mostly A's drank a can, bottle, or glass of soda pop or soda, whatever you call it, and that's not including diet soda or diet soft drinks, at least one time per day. And 47% of high school students with mostly D's or F's drank a can or bottle or glass of soda at least one time per day during the last 7 days before the survey was administered. So, in other words, the students who drank soda at least once a day earned more D's and F's than A's when we look at that data together. These kinds of associations don't tell us that there's a direct link or direct cause. In terms of research, we would say it doesn't show causation. It just shows that perhaps there's some kind of association between drinking soda and, you know, not doing well in school. In 2010, the CDC released a report on the association between school-based physical activity, including physical education and academic performance. This report examined how different physical activity coexists in schools, including physical education, recess, classroom-based activity, and extracurricular activities, and showed how they're associated with a variety of academic outcomes. An important result from this report is that increasing or maintaining time for physical education does not appear to adversely impact academic achievement. So often the argument is that when we add in physical activity, the school day is only so long and we only have so many minutes. If we take minutes away from learning in the classroom to move to physical activity, that we may see some achievements coming down, and that's just not the case. Taking a closer look at the evidence for physical activity and academic achievement, there are links to different aspects here. So students who are physically active tend to have better grades, school attendance, cognitive performance, so for example, memory, and classroom behaviors. Higher physical activity and physical fitness levels are associated with improved cognitive performance among students. More participation in physical activity or physical education classes has been associated with better grades and standardized test scores. Time spent in recess has been shown to be have a positive effect on students' cognitive performance and classroom behaviors. Brief classroom physical activity breaks, so 5 to 10 minute activity breaks in the classroom, can also have a positive impact on things like standardized test scores or even reading literacy scores. And participation in extracurricular physical activities such as sports has been associated with higher GPAs, lower dropout rates, and fewer disciplinary problems among students. Again, data from the 2009 Youth Risk Behavior Survey indicated that 33% of high school students with mostly A's did not play on at least one sports team run by their school or community, their school or community organizations. And 60% of high school students with mostly D's and F's did not participate in a sports activity. So again, those students who that percentage who didn't participate, a higher percentage of them had poorer grades than those who participated in these sports and activities. Again, doesn't show us causation, but tells us that there is potentially a link between physical activity and better grades. So now that you have some of the evidence, the next step is to use that evidence in supporting messages you share with your audience. And think a little bit about who some of your audience could be. You may not be necessarily talking about physical activity. You may focus more on the nutrition messages, but who are your audiences? Your audiences could be students, they could be administrators, they could be parents, all in support of the fact that we need, healthy guidelines in the cafeteria, and that those guidelines that we have for the cafeteria need to be supported campus wide, right? So that they're following through with fundraising and food served in the classroom. That they're all in support of these healthy messages. It's important to have and to be able to give healthy messages to audience, specific audience groups. So this table really identifies the specific benefits for several different audiences. For example, schools that are addressing healthy eating and physical activity should have decreased rates of absenteeism, fewer behavioral problems, and higher test scores and grades. This is important to both schools and school districts. So if you look at that row, some of the benefits for that audience of having physical activity and healthy foods is, again, increased attendance rates, increased graduation rates, and better test scores. So you're able to provide sort of the return on the investment to that audience group. Remember that specific messages should really resonate with that particular audience's core values. So again, a district is concerned about attendance rates and graduation rates. Those metrics are very important for them, and the higher they are, the better. So focusing in on things that are actually going to resonate can help in getting messages across. Addressing healthy eating and physical activity in schools, it matters. It definitely matters. While the goal for stakeholders is really to take action, it's also to get them to the point where they understand that the why behind why this matters, right? Why they need to get involved in this. That's the persuasive argument. And oftentimes when we're talking about food in the cafeteria and the healthy food in the cafeteria, we're often trying to make this healthy, helping our stakeholders understand the why behind what we're doing. So the why is really about getting the stakeholders to understand the link between health and academics. So here are some ways that you can share this message. So consistently sharing the evidence or key messages, and again, focusing on the benefits for the stakeholders, can be done in a one-on-one conversation, or perhaps it's a PowerPoint that's created, or it could be at meetings and presentations. It might be through emails or newsletters or any kind of print document. The idea is that you're keeping this message relevant to the audience that you're talking to, and that you're consistently providing this message. Remember also, though, that some of your audience is internal. So we could think back to professional development and professional standards, and increasing our knowledge base of our staff and why, and helping them understand why we do some of what we do. So that is also another audience and a place where the message could be shared. Certainly, parents are an important audience, and so making sure that we're sharing and promoting healthy eating to the parents in ways that they can understand, and again, linking what we're doing to the academic achievement of their students. Remember, it is our responsibility to share the evidence and important link between healthy eating and improved academic achievement with state and local policymakers, state and local school boards, key community organizations, parents, and anyone else interested in equipping children to be healthy and successful in schools. The goal of knowing the evidence and sharing the core and audience specific messages is really to get people to take action, to get those stakeholders to take action. The next few slides are really going to highlight some key actions that some of these stakeholders, some of these organizations and groups can do to support the strategies for addressing healthy eating in schools. So, who can take action? Well, states can take action, school districts can take action, schools can take action, parents and students. Schools and school districts have really diverse staffs, including administrators, who may be made up of directors, program coordinators, school principals, etc. Also, instructional staff, so people like teachers or physical education specialists or special ed staff would make up some of that group. Other personnel might be coaches or school nurse or other supportive people within the school. All of these people can be involved and take action. Here are some examples of actions that can be taken by states. So we'll kind of break this down a little bit. States can create partnerships between departments of health and education and other key stakeholders to support the connection between health and academic achievement at a national level. Some examples for school districts might be establishing, implementing, and monitoring local school wellness policies that support healthy school nutrition environments and also support a comprehensive approach to physical education in schools. A school district may also collect data on health and education behaviors at their specific site and use those as a way of identifying areas that need to be addressed, but also areas that are done really well. So best practices that are already in place. From schools might establish a health advisory council or more likely a wellness committee that includes people across all different levels of the schools. So it could be staff and parents and students. You may have outside community members, all of them meeting regularly to discuss, what's working, what needs to be implemented, and then areas that still may need to be addressed. For parents, parents can be involved in school health activities at their child's school. This can be done by attending classes on health topics supported by the school. They may volunteer in the school. They may even be part of the school wellness committee. So there are a variety of different ways that parents can be involved. I think often overlooked are students themselves. They certainly can participate in a number of different ways, whether it's at the state or the district or school level. I belong to Switch, which is a Massachusetts statewide, um, uh, school wellness coalition, and we have student members on that, so they participate there as well. A pilot study was done, and the citation for it is sort of linked at the bottom here. And there were 9 levels of school change that were identified in this study. And the 9 are listed here. So things from planning teams that are principal led, which is often sometimes a challenge in schools, or collaboration. The idea that collaboration should commence from the start of the planning process. So at the very beginning, as we assess what our needs are, that should be a collaborative process. So these are just 9 levels or 9 things to think about when you're sort of really looking at change that may need to happen over the in relationship to school wellness. I think it's really interesting that from this pilot study, the role of the principal was the most critical piece of the puzzle in implementing meaningful school change and school improvement. Last year, we in Massachusetts conducted a statewide needs assessment to determine what was going on with regard to the implementation of school wellness policies, and what were some enablers and what were some barriers. And I will tell you that the results from our study were very similar in that administrators were identified as both an enabler, meaning they helped to make policies happen, and they were a barrier. That one of the main reasons that policies were not implemented was that it really wasn't a focus or an action item for administrators. So I think it's certainly a common issue, and it hasn't changed from this pilot study and then the assessment results that we put together from our needs assessment. So again, there are resources available for you to use to make the case for healthy eating and physical activity and improving academic achievement. And so I covered a couple resources in the last slide set. So at the very end, I talk about 2 resources there, but there are more. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has a webpage on health and academics. On this page, you can find fact sheets and presentations on the link between health and healthy behaviors and academic grades, as well as evidence-based reports. So you can get some hard evidence through the CDC. This is just sort of a pictorial representation of some of the fact sheets that you can pull up in support of linking healthy behaviors and academic outcomes. Health in Mind is a report from Healthy Schools Campaign and the Trust for Americans' Health. The report details immediate solutions that can help close the achievement gap and create a healthy future for all children. Health in Mind really focuses on several federal initiatives and policies that can broaden the benefit that health and well-being and education have on the nation's students. The Learning Connection is another resource. So their report, What You Need to Know to Ensure Your Kids Are Healthy and Ready to Learn, was developed by the Action for Healthy Kids. This report demonstrates that physical activity supports academic achievement and well-nourished kids learn better. So important for us. So, sort of in summary, healthy kids are healthy students and really provide and work towards better communities. Improving academic achievement through healthy eating and physical activity really can have short term but also long term benefits. So now it's time for you to get started. This again is just sort of a bulleted list of what you need to do on the School Health Index website to get started setting up your team and getting going in analyzing what's going on within your cafeteria and how you and your cafeteria can look to help promote healthy behaviors to help increase academic achievement. Remember, the School Health Index is not a test and it's not a punishment. Instead, it's really meant to be a self-assessment of what's going on currently and help you plan on how you can make changes and small steps towards, again, creating a healthy environment to help promote academic achievement for students.